In this third AlmaCast episode of 2024, Jono and I sit and discuss the early years, the genesis story of Steve Newman, one of South Africa's most gifted virtuoso guitar players. Member of several renowned bands, most notably Tananas, but other collaborations in particular with the likes of Tony Cox, he certainly has many a story to tell, and this is an interview that really goes in depth into the early years, the 70s and 80s, and the rise of the skill set in terms of his guitar playing. He reflects on his journeys between the UK and South Africa in the 70s and then into the 80s, and how things started to really pick up for him between the highway between Josie and Durbs in the 80s as Tananas starts to form the backbone with Ian Herman and Gito Baloi. In the hour that we had with Steve, we really only scratched the surface of his own solo career, the beginning of that, and then we conclude with the formation of Tananas and the signing up to the various record labels and so forth. So it doesn't at all touch on the post-Tananas collaborations, his solo work, the recordings of Tananas. So the good news is that there will be a second part to this conversation that really picks up from where we left off. It's 40 minutes of gold from the man himself, and it concludes with a track In a Dream from his solo album Flavour, released in 2008. And we really do hope that you enjoy this conversation with one of South Africa's most unique talents. Sit back, enjoy the time and the company of Steve Newman. This afternoon, here we are at the Alma Cafe, absolutely delighted and really excited to be not only with Jono Tate. Good to see you, Jono. Are you well?
Hello, Pete. I'm very well.
But also with our special guest this evening, playing later, Steve Newman. Steve, what an absolute privilege, my friend. Welcome to the Alma Cafe.
Nice to be here,
Welcome
guys.
back to the Alma
Welcome
Cafe.
back,
You've
indeed.
been one of our, absolute, stalwarts here. I think since we opened, you've been playing here since the early days, huh?
Yes.
It's lovely to see you back here today. And you're playing with Nish Pillay. Nish, it's
Yes.
also nice to have you here with us this afternoon. Tell us a bit more, Steve. I really wanted us to go a bit deeper into your story, your life as a professional musician, your life as a virtuoso guitar player. I'd love to chat to you about Tananas and that story.
Sure.
And where in the trajectory, as you say, you're into your 70s now, where to from here? But let's go back. How did you get started? And tell us about those early days, the formative years.
Yes. Well, I got a gift of 8 half-hour lessons as a birthday present for my 13th birthday. And that's basically how I got started. The guy who sat next to me on the first day of school, so when we were 6 years old, I sat next to this guy who actually cried when his mom left,
It happens, It happens. We've all been there.
So at the time, I was living in Salt River, he was living in Brooklyn. And then at some point, our family moved to Brooklyn and we were going to the same church, so we connected again. And he said I must come and visit him. And I got on my bicycle and I rode up to his house and he had an electric guitar. So I was quite taken with that. In those days, we didn't talk about acoustic guitars like we do today. We called them ordinary guitars and electric guitars. Anyway, so this guy showed me a few things and then I had the 8 lessons. And that was also quite a weird thing because I was very much a mommy's boy. And my mom took me into town to this guitar school, which is the Arthur Deacon School of Guitar. Gary Deacon's dad. Gary Deacon is a local musician. His dad had a guitar school. When I went up with my mom, we knocked on the door and this lady came to the door and my mom knew it because she was a woman called Baby Botha and she played in a Buramistic band with my dad.
Now I understand where the influence comes from.
So she gave me the first 4 lessons and then Arthur himself the next 4, and it was really basic, some chords and guitar boogie, really basic reading. From there I picked up stuff from older guys and friends, Then one day there was this girl who was at school with me called Cheryl Higgins, and her dad was a mechanic, but he played classical guitar. Now, all the musicians used to gather in this movie hire shop, which is right by a bus stop that I got off at, and I'd often wander in there, and there was Mickey and Maney Reyes, who was a violinist. He had his own Buddha music band, and the guy who owned the music hire shop was called Sven Roberts, and he was a guitarist, and I'd seen him at some of the variety concerts we had in the town hall. He often used to show me things, and anyway, I got chatting with him, and Mickey said, you must come round to my place for tea. I want to show you this book. So I went round to Mickey's place, and he showed me this book called Solo Guitar Playing by Frederick M. Noward. And that's where I learnt classical technique from, basically. I bought this nylon string guitar, which was in a furniture shop in Brooklyn for I think it was advertised at 18 Rand something. It was a Kauai, but because I paid cash for it, it was less than that even.
Nice.
Wow.
And then I started playing, but I was playing just with one finger and the thumb. And then when I got this book and I realized, you use 3 fingers and a thumb, it all became easier and easier, and Mickey, the guitar playing mechanic, he was very encouraging. He said, if I had the money, I'd send you to Spain to study with Segovia and blah, blah, blah. So he was very encouraging. And in the meantime, I'd been playing in bands with my high school mates, including the guy who sat next to me on the first day of school. Eventually, we graduated from playing like rock stuff to dance music. So we played all kinds of things, like waltzes and cha-chas and
the polka,
rumbas and,
I just drew a line at the polka.
Elvis, Beatles, everything.
Perfect.
So that was actually my music education.
Literally everything.
All of that. 8 lessons and picking up from other guys.
Well spent in terms of the money.
That book that Mickey suggested, and then, playing in dance bands. And then playing in dance bands was amazing because you used to earn quite good money, and playing a weekend for dancers, you'd earn more money than your monthly salary of your day job, So that was really cool, but eventually a friend of mine, he left his Spanish guitar with me to babysit while he went on holiday. And then just playing that guitar just changed my thinking and what I felt about guitar altogether. And I just thought, I don't actually want to be playing electric guitar anymore. I found the sound of an electric guitar, although I enjoyed it, especially in the beginning, I found quite piercing because, when you play rock and roll and you've got the amp behind you, and eventually my eardrums would vibrate. I used to go to the orchestra at the City Hall every Thursday and every Sunday, and then when the violins would play high notes, my eardrums would
tingle.
No, it would be like distortion,
wow,
that would,
uncomfortable.
Yeah, and so when I stopped playing loud rock music and all of that stuff, then my ear was suddenly fine. I just enjoying.
Here, Steve. Jeez, my ears are cracking these days.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I look at some of my friends, like Peter Cohen, who played with Bright Blue and Freshly Ground and whatever, Mango Groove and whatever, he's got hearing aids.
Yeah.
A lot of drummers, hearing aids, and
Johnny Blundell's another one.
Some guitarists too. So nowadays, I feel I'd rather be playing at a lower volume than a higher volume, because for me, an audience should be actively engaged, actively listening, not blasting them so that all they're doing is passive listening, and just being blasted with the shit and being entertained. Whereas if you play a little bit lower volume, the people have to listen. They have to be
physically
engaged
lean in
the music. not just be blasted with it. They actually have to listen actively, and I really like that. I really like that.
Listen for lightness and shade in the sound. I mean, you'd know, Jono, I mean, the whole idea of you can hide a multitude of sin in that amplification, right?
Oh, gee, turn it up and distort it, and you can be very messy.
You're naked when you're playing up on a stage like here tonight.
Yes.
With very minimal amplification.
Yes.
And it's there's no room to hide, right?
Yes.
It's a skill.
But I enjoy that because acoustic guitar is a very simple instrument, really. And if you just approach it like many people do, where they buy Alfred's chord dictionary of 4,327 chords and learn all of the chords that are there, then you're just going to be playing like everybody else. And you're going to be playing the chord sequences that everybody else plays. But if you start changing the chords, looking and exploring how they actually work, because it's very mystifying for a lot of young players when they see all these weird chords,
Absolutely.
C seventh, augmented fifth,
different language, isn't
C demented ninth, whatever.
Like sometimes all that means is you've moved your pinky one fret to the right, and it actually doesn't sound so cuck. So like, oh, that's quite nice.
Yeah. So if you get into how that all works, which is actually very simple. It's just a matter of letters and numbers. It's you don't really need to go into notation and tablature and stuff like that.
Do you function around chords like that when you think you're not thinking like that when you're playing, or do you?
Over the years, how it came to me, that chords are constructed in a particular way. Mm-hmm. I was sitting, living in Brooklyn, we had access to this bungalow in the Air Force Base, Asterplaat Air Force Base, where we could practice with our band. And at a practice, the whole place was packed. Every weekend it was packed. And anyway, I was sitting there one day, and it was actually during the day, and there was this smart-ass guy from Milnerton High, which was the kind of the wealthier suburb, a couple of suburbs down. You always look for girlfriends from Milnerton. And
isn't that where you live now? Just about.
Just around the corner. I have a wife from there, but
okay.
less said.
Anyway, this guy, he was like a bit of a know-it-all guy. Nice enough guy, but a bit of a know-it-all and very English, He still had his accent and everything. And we were sitting chatting, and he said F9. And I said, what's F9? And he said, it's very easy. You just count, you play your scale and you count to 9 and you add that note, and that's F9. And I thought, wow, is that all it's about?
He really does know it all.
Yeah.
That's just something blowing my brain.
Yeah, so then I started buying, rather than buying Alfred's chord dictionary, I used to buy sheet music of complicated pieces, like jazz pieces, basically. Okay. Misty, desafinado, things where all these impossible chords, and actually work them out according to what he told me.
That's time consuming.
Yeah, but
that'll learn you.
But I became intimate with every chord, and then when you get into fingerstyle again, the voicings you can choose. You don't have to just play D like that and B minor and G A. You can have all kinds of different voicings to make the chord sound totally different.
Yeah.
And that really appealed to me. So
and I imagine also just from every perspective. I mean, I'm sitting here with my mind melted, Pete, for the record, learning the sound of your guitar by counting up and listening to those notes on a string.
Yeah.
And then just being able to visually learn the fretboard like that.
Yeah.
That's such and because you're doing it, like, I can think if I had to sit and do that, because I can't read for guitar at all. I can only read for piano and trombone.
Mm.
If I had to sit and do that on a guitar and like slowly grind through figuring all of those out through the 20 frets and 6 strings, like that gives you a working knowledge of the guitar in 2 years that opens the instrument up completely.
Yeah, not even 2 years. Like if you, it's like when you have almost like a revelation. Oh,
Yeah.
this is how it works. Then it all becomes easy.
Yeah.
You see, that's what I strive for, is to make it all easy rather than to make it complicated. You see,
Yeah.
what I saw in this book on classical technique is that they do exactly that. If you're playing a chord, but you're only using your fingers, you're not playing all of the notes on the, all of the 6 strings, you're playing 3 or 4 notes. Right?
Yeah.
Then you can change the voices whichever way you like. Like you play a C, normally you play a C there,
Cowboy C,
there, all the different Cs that everybody knows. But you can also play a C with an E bass, C on the second string, and G on the first string, and it sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
It sounds so different.
Yeah.
When I teach workshops, for instance, I go into the way I understand theory. So I show people, okay, you don't have to learn every single scale and say, okay, well, there's 1 sharp in the key of G, it's F sharp, there's 2 sharps in the key of D, and there's, 4 sharps in the key of E. You don't need any of that shit. All you need to do...
I don't remember that shit anymore.
All you need to do is know the formula for a major scale.
Yeah.
Which is tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So if you know that formula, wherever you start, it doesn't matter. The sharps and flats will come up as you play. It doesn't, you see, so you don't have to actually sit down and practice scales 8 hours a day and shit like that. You don't need to do that at all.
Oh, for a picture of Jono's face right now.
I was going to say, I have to just tell the picture that's going on, which is I have my head in my hands and my mouth wide open going, why has no one told me this in my life before?
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 20 years and I feel like a kid.
Yeah. So,
like, holy shit, Steve.
So then what I do is I write
tone,
the scale of C out because there are no sharps or flats.
Yeah.
So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C.
Yeah.
Right? Now, out of those notes in the scale, your major chord is the first, the third, and the fifth notes. So it's C, E, and G. So what I do then is I take the same series of notes, but starting in with E, and I put that underneath the C. And I put E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E.
Mm-hmm.
And then underneath that, I put G. So G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So now what I've done basically is harmonized the scale. So instead of playing C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, I've put a second voice and a third voice.
And
so
does that work with the modes? Does that create the modes in harmony?
Well, the modes are all in one scale.
Yeah. That's
So-
wild too. I want to go play with that with a loop
Yeah,
section.
no, that's all the modes are in any given scale. They're all in there. So if
Yeah.
you start the C scale with the note C,
Your major.
your normal mode, right?
Mm.
And then if you start the same series of notes from D, that's your Dorian.
Yeah.
If you start from E, that's your Phrygian. If
Yeah,
you start
yeah.
from F, that's your
This
Lydian, and
is
so on. So
absolute
the
mind
modes
blowing.
aren't even worth actually mentioning.
Yeah,
they're
because it's just all built
there.
in anyway.
Yeah. But if you get to this thing of playing the scale in chords, then you're talking harmony, basic
Yeah.
harmony, right? So what I do then is I tell people in a workshop, okay, so that's basic like 3-part harmony. And the difference between, like pop and, just let's say light music or whatever, is that's all there is. But if you add another voice to that, so you add a 7th, so underneath those 3, you'd start with B, B, C, D, because B is your major 7th note in the scale of C. You start B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, A, B, sorry. So then you've got C major 7th, D minor 7th, E minor 7th, F major 7th, G 7th, A minor 7th, B minor 7 flat 5, and C major 7. That's jazz.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
Yeah.
And you can add another voice on the 9th.
No, you're on the 9th, 11th,
And so on, you
13th.
see.
Oh, my God.
So then I explained to people how these funny names for chords arise. Okay,
Yeah.
so you say, okay, your C major chord equals C, E, and G.
Yeah.
Your 1, 3, 5. C6, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, it's an A. You add that to your
the note, yeah.
major chord, and you got C6. Then you got C major 7th, which is adding the B. What's the difference between C major 7th and C 7th? It's a B flat instead of a B, so you lower the major 7th to get a 7th.
Yeah.
Then you can add, C7 plus 5 or augmented 5th. All you do is you augment your 5th. Your 5th is G, so you make it G sharp, and so on and so on. And you also, I also explain how you move from a major to a minor, and from a minor to a diminished.
Question,
So that
Steve.
people,
I'm usually sitting at my dining room table with the guitar, and I'm just exploring, trying to let go of myself and not be in the room, and just let the fact that I've been around a guitar for a while guide the process and see what comes through. How much does this thinking around theory, which is astonishing in the way that you've broken it down again, just to reiterate how much that idea of the way around it has blown my mind, but how much of that is present in the moment where you're finding inspiration or creating? Is that more for when you're in studio in a live situation with other musicians where you need to communicate?
It's like this. Once you know all the rules, you can break all of them. So you can
So here
actually
comes the rock
ignore
and roll.
them. You can actually ignore them. And that's the really valuable thing I got out of working with Tananas, with Gito and Ian,
Yeah.
is that we operated like children. We just, one of us would arrive with a very vague idea. The other guys would listen, put their input, and then 5 minutes you got a new song. I like working like that. That's the way I like to work. I don't see myself as a composer.
You don't?
No, because it sounds a bit fucking pompous to me.
This is why we love
composer.
Steve. Yeah, I mean, you look
make
like
up
Mozart with your
tunes.
beautiful grey flowing locks, mate.
You make up tunes. That's how I relate to the process.
Okay.
Not composing. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, you're just kind of sitting there with your quill.
You could be decomposing.
I have to chuckle, Steve. I mean, I've heard Tananas described in many ways, but the idea of the sort of childlike,
Yes.
that I've never heard.
Yes.
I'm going to take you back, if I may.
Absolutely.
I'm going to take you back to 1994, if I'm not mistaken. And again, a lot of these conversations we've had here in the Alma are with people whose music has completely inspired me, been part of my South African journey.
Yes.
I came here in 1994, August, September.
Yes.
And I think it was within 2 or 3 months of that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I find myself at Sun City. I find myself at a Sting gig, and there's a support band, and there are 3 people who come on stage. Maybe it was 5. Maybe it was during the Orchestro Mundo
That's
period.
correct.
Yeah,
That's correct.
And to put it kindly, it had been a big night the night before, and I wasn't quite sure how Sting was going to sound after the night before. Bottom line,
Wait, were you jolling with Sting?
No, we I'd been jolling the night before, and we went to see Sting the matinee show. And here is this band, Tananas. It's the first time I've heard this band. I've just arrived from the UK. No idea who they are. I'm told that this is quite a band in South Africa. It blew me away, Steve. It was just a completely unique sound coming from the UK. I'd never heard anything like it. Obviously, we'd heard in the UK with my South African connections things like Jaluka, and that was as South African as I would understand music at that stage. To hear this and this complex arrangements and, I say technical and genius. That's between the 5 of you were making most beautiful sounds, and you held your own that day on a stage where within minutes Sting would be there. Then, of course, I saw you guys down in Yeovil, Rocky Street,
Yes.
and that sort of vibe in the Tandura, I think it was.
Yeah.
And saw you up close with Gito and Ian. Absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, having listened to rock music, to pop music, and then to hear this, it was otherworldly. Like, completely blew my mind. Went and bought the Orchestra Mundo. That period and that whole Tananas space. Tell us a bit about how the three of you came into that and that chemistry, that special chemistry that clearly you guys had.
Yes.
Can we start the conversation with a confirmation of something that my folks think they remembered when I was speaking to them a little bit earlier? Is it true that Ian Herman said no thanks to Sting in favor of staying with Tananas?
I'm not sure of that. I know that they did meet in New York, but I don't know what was discussed. It could well be, but I don't think Ian would have been particularly keen to be a more kind of permanent member. And I think Sting had his drummer anyway.
Okay.
You know? The reason why Ian played with Sting at one gig here, I think in Johannesburg.
Ellis Park at the big show there, 5FM show, yeah.
Yes, is that Sting's drummer, I think, overindulged with Bolivian marching powder. And so they asked Ian to stand in. And, Ian's no slouch, as you know.
What a player.
No slouch.
He didn't even actually rehearse with them. He just listened to the stuff.
Amazing.
The 7/4 or whatever time signature they threw at him. There's nothing for him, It was
a big crowd. It was a big crowd, Steve. There's about 70,000 people there. Yeah. But I mean, it was incredible. I mean, he fitted straight in. It was absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
So you guys meeting one another? Where did that take place?
Yes. Okay. So I was living in London from kind of 83 till the end of 87.
Okay.
But I came back every year for a little 4 to 6 weeks. In 1986, when I came back, I landed on a Friday and I went to Jamison's in Johannesburg. I saw this guy from Kenya called Simba Mori.
Oh, yeah.
And Mr. Gito Baloi was playing bass with him.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, geez, lovely bass player. And I'm not really a guy who goes up to people and says, hey, we must get together and jam. I never do that because there's so many guys who say that and they never pitch for what I mean? So anyway, and he walked past me and I said, hey, we must jam sometime. Ian and I had met before, I think at the Hard Rock Cafe here in Rondebosch at the time. And we had threatened to get together at some point. And it just so happened that Ian and Sheet were both the Shifty kind of rhythm section together. And
as in Shifty Records?
Yeah,
okay,
Shifty Records. They were both working.
Sorry, because I actually laughed that bit.
Working on various albums,
I didn't know that. That's a really cool connection. I had
so
no
they were
idea.
basically a rhythm for hire section then, right?
Yeah.
With Shifty, yes.
Yeah.
But they weren't playing together much at all.
Understood.
Outside of the studio.
Understood.
And then we started rehearsing at this big house where Shifty was actually located, that's where the studio was. And Ian was living in the house. So then, I met Lloyd Ross. We started doing gigs and I went back to London. And then end of 87, I came back kind of for good. Because I did a lot of really amazing gigs in the UK, a lot of really nice festivals, including like Glastonbury, Towsy, Sidmouth. One's journey as a musician, you meet people along the way. When I went over, it was the second time that I went over in 1983. I had been over there in 77, and I always got a good response at the folk clubs. So I always picked up work eventually, A friend of mine said Piet van Heerden, he's now the late Piet van Heerden, he was involved at the Barleycorn, but before that I actually met him in Port Elizabeth. He was involved with the Four Winds folk club. And he said to me, just before I left, he said, you must go and see John Martin, Martin Simpson and Martin Carthy. Martin Carthy I'd already seen when I went over in 77, and I loved Martin Carthy. I went to see Martin Simpson one night at the Cock Tavern, which was off Oxford Street, and you pitch at these gigs early so that you can get a spot. And when Martin came in, he saw my guitar leaning against this cupboard, and he said, whose guitar is this? So I said, it's mine. And it's the guitar I play now anyway, it's the same one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So we started chatting, and I said, I'm from South Africa and whatever. And, when you say you're from South Africa, a lot of the lefties on the folk scene, they want to know.
Back in those days, it would have been a difficult conversation.
They want to know if you're a Nazi or, how you feel about the government at the time and so on. So, we chatted and politics came up and all of that. And then I did my spot, and he just loved it. And he said to me, listen, have you got an album? I'll review it for you.
Oh, wow.
This magazine called Southern Rag, which eventually became Folk Roots. Out of that, I got so much work because, he also put me in his ad. He mentioned, if you're interested in Steve Newman, review above, contact me. Then eventually I moved into the house that he was staying in, Walthamstow, and it was like a full-on folky safe house. All the guys who came from wherever outside of London, they used to come and stay there. So people like Willie Scott, who was a traditional Scottish singer, who was actually a shepherd, his grandson played with me here in South Africa. He played with Silver Creek Mountain Band. He was a ridiculous fiddler,
That's so
Lindsay
cool.
Scott. And he played on David Bowie's Diamond Dogs album.
Wow.
But he was a really exceptional fiddler. He wasn't your normal, just what you'd expect from Silver Creek, and that he could play anything in any key, because a lot of fiddlers avoid certain keys.
They all want to play in G minor.
I said to Willie, I played with your grandson, Lindsay, and he said, aye, he's a good fiddler. That's all he said. Because Lindsay was a total arsehole when he was drunk. He was a total reprobate. Anyway, so I was staying in this house, and, Dick Cochin came to stay there, Pete Coe, Chris Coe, John Adams, June Tabor, all kinds of amazing people from the folk scene. So I became friends with all of these people, Martin Simpson was my buddy. I'm not name dropping or anything like that, but we became friends. So and at that same gig, a South African friend of mine who was living in London, he asked me to play at his wedding and so on, and I said, cool. And he was at the gig, and there was this guy sitting next to him, and the guy turned to him and said, who is this fucking maniac? Referring to me. And he said, it's a school friend of mine. We used to play in, high school bands and stuff like that. And he said, what's your name? And he said, John McLaughlin.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Because John McLaughlin is a big fan of Johnny Fourie.
Yes, I've only ever heard the
And so he
legends of
probably
Johnny
saw
Fourie.
in Time Out South African guitarist, blah, 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 and he came along. So, eventually I got all these festivals and really nice gigs. Like I did Glastonbury, 87, with a cello player called Catherine Locke, and who was based in London. I did WOMAD in 87 as well, and that was really
That's cool.
wild, because WOMAD was this kind of...
That was brand new, hey, Steve? That would
Brand
have been
new.
right out of the
Just
box then,
starting
87.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was in St Austell in Cornwall. There was a sign saying acoustic stage. You go, there's nothing there. There's no PA, there's no stage, there's nothing.
It's
You just
it's
park,
acoustic.
Naked
you just
stage.
park there in the bush, and you start playing. And there's nobody, no audience.
No-
You start playing.
Peter Gabriel comes,
And then
drops
the-
down from the sky or what?
No, the people hear the music and they all come out.
Amazing.
So I'm playing with my eyes closed. Next thing I look, there's loads of people, and it's me and this cellist again.
That's
Jeez.
super cool.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
So the Glastonbury, we played on the WOMAD stage, and it was really fantastic. I mean, it was like 150,000 people. And The next year there was a lot more, but Elvis Costello and Van Morrison were there. But, you know, there were so many amazing acts there that I didn't even bother to pick up my backstage passes to go and see them. I saw this band from Guinea called Fatala, and they were just amazing. It was just one guitar, percussion, and two singers, a male and female, like chanting and fucking flailing their arms all over the place, dancing, and they were just, you know, the whole audience was standing like at an angle. They were totally entranced.
Okay.
And not trance music, but they were entranced. They were amazing. So I didn't even bother to go and see the big guys, you know. In fact, on the WOMAD stage, there was all these, the Real Sounds of Zimbabwe. What was the other one called? Bush something. All amazing acts. And Sidmouth was fantastic. Towersey, Bromyard, you know, a lot of really nice festivals. And
That's crazy.
So when I came back, end of 87, in 86 I came back for 4 to 6 weeks and then got together with Ian and Gito, and we played Thursday nights at Jamison's, and then we'd drive down to Durban to play Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Hotel California in the basement. I forget what the venue was called, but Alex Bozes was the barman there at the time.
Alex is a Cape Town legend. I don't know if you know. Okay, yeah. Alex Bozes is he's got the nicest marshal in Cape Town. That's why I'm friends with him. But he's just also one of those, like, been around since the beginning of time. Absolute legend.
He's a great
photographer.
Guy.
Okay.
He's a great photographer, and he took lots of pictures of
What's his band as well? Benguela.
Yeah.
Also very improvisatory, kind of jazz influenced stuff. It's him and Ross and
Bryden.
That's right.
Bryden, yes.
Yeah. That's what
we were doing for like 6 weeks. Playing in Joburg Thursday, driving down, playing Durban Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The Blue Note, the venue is called the Blue Note, in the Hotel California.
And I mean, this is before we even get into, because we're unfortunately running short on time here.
Okay. We didn't have a name then. We weren't called Tansnas yet.
Just the O's.
When I got back now for good, end of 87, we started up again playing, and then 88 we recorded our first album with Shifty. And then every 2 years, we left Shifty, we went to Gallo, eventually to Sony. But we put out albums every 2 years. Yeah.
Steve, maybe that's where, for now, we leave it with a promise that we come back. And next time you're here, we pick up the conversation from this formative. And I mean, just the story about, you know, you went from Shifty to Gallo to Sony. I mean, it's like working through the football leagues, from your non-league into your Premier League to your Champions League. And I think it'll be a fantastic story. And I say, we haven't even got to your own solo work, post-Tananas and so forth. So with your permission, sir, we'd go again next time. Certainly from my side, I mean, wow. The one thing that the three of us have in common is that we all own guitars.
Oh, good.
Where I drop out is I can't play mine.
I'm also I'm more on that team right now. Just from my side, the stuff in my head is, I've obviously always known you around Tony and the Aquarian Quartet. That's where I got to know your music more, Steve. There's the legends of my youth, which was the gigs that my dad was doing with you guys as the sound guy. I know there was well gigs.
Yes.
My mum was talking about a pizza joint in Cape Town that you guys used to play in back in, or that you used to play in.
This could be its own series.
Well, totally. It's like, and then like the Grahamstown National Arts Fest. I mean, you were kind of part of the furniture there for about the entirety of the fest, weren't you?
Yeah.
I mean,
the first time we went to play there as Tansnas, we just
took the roof off.
Yeah, I mean, we did like, I think 17 shows.
Oh,
and
that's
on the Fringe, and they were all packed.
Amazing.
Yeah.
People. But that's trying to get in, you know.
That's the legacy of the band, Steve, and the three of you and the magic. I say that certain chemistry.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Cool, no problem.
Extremely wonderful experience. look forward to picking up the conversation.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Jono, thanks as always, my friend.
Yo,
and looking forward to seeing you tonight, Steve.
Yeah.
Cool.
And yourself and Nish. Enjoy your night. And we haven't even talked about the Alma. And what do you think about this amazing venue? And we'll get to that next time.
Nish, you guys must please come down here again soon. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll be back. I think the Easter weekend and the weekend after,
Wonderful.
which is
the weekend
first
after,
weekend
definitely.
of April.
Okay.
To be continued.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
Enjoy your show tonight, sir.
okay. Thanks,
you.
Pete.
Thanks, Steve.
Fantastic.